Hi, I'm Kapunahele Wong, and I work on the Angular docs, and I'd like to share with you how you can contribute to them. The Angular docs are located at angular.io/docs, and here in this screenshot, I've actually drilled down just a little bit so that you can see that the docs that I'm talking about is everything on that left-hand nav. So why would somebody want to contribute to the docs? And I thought about this a lot. I came up with a whole bunch of different reasons. And then I realized that they really boiled down to one concept, which is community. When we help others, we help ourselves. There was one reason, though, that I couldn't quite fit into that little box, and that's because it's cool. That's Bruce Lee practicing Kung Fu with his Sifu, Yip Man. So I'd like to give you a little background about my relationship with the docs. I started working on the docs. When I started, I was a front-end developer at Capital One, and I worked primarily in GitHub Enterprise, and so it was a pretty contained environment and basically private. You know, I knew everybody I was engaging with. My repos were small. I was coding along quite nicely in my small little world, and then I got more involved in Angular. We used Angular at Capital One, but I wanted to go deeper. And so as I dug through the docs, time came for my first PR. And you know, I looked at the repo and I saw people who to me were giants, and people I admired very deeply. So I had a lot of questions because beyond that, I didn't really understand the process of doing it. So I felt really tiny. That's a baby pangolin, if anyone's curious. So cute. But everyone has to start somewhere. And I have a sense of adventure, so I was going to go for it. Even though inside I had a little bit of fear in the back of my mind because I didn't know what it would be like. And I thought, oh man, it's going to be like this when I get there. But I'm happy to say it wasn't like that at all. Actually, it was more like this. The giants take care of the people just learning and starting out. And they even did it when I did things like this in Git. Or this. You can do that in Git. It's not in the documentation, but I've done it. People were still like this, no matter what I did. So recently, we've been making some changes to the docs, and one of those changes can be seen specifically in the new ng modules documentation that's there. What we did was we actually took the long doc. There was one large doc there, and what we did was we broke it up, and we created 11 documents out of it so that you can get the material in smaller, digestible pieces. And along with that, we have the same original example that's on there, but we've also broken that out too, so that you can have, for example, in the document that now just covers lazy loading feature modules, there's just one small sample in there that shows you exactly how to do just that. You can still see the larger example that showcases everything at once, but this is the direction that we're heading, and I just wanted to zoom into the nav for you so you can see exactly how we've broken that out. So there's now a document just on entry components and so on. So that's the direction that we're headed, just to give you some context if you're interested in contributing. So, and if you are, I have some things that I would recommend that you do first. One is just to search the PRs and see what's going on out there, just to primarily to make sure that you're not duplicating something. Next would be to search issues, and this is a really interesting point for me actually, because the issues give us you really get a feel for how people are responding to the docs. So, for example, if we have someone who says, they post one and says, oh, hey, I don't understand this concept, and I'd like to get some documentation on it. And then someone else can come in and say, oh, I do understand this, and they explain it. And then that can even start conversation, and you have a couple of people who really know it. And then there's all of a sudden, there's this really great information there. And then someone from the docs team can come and look at that and use that actually as a reference to start building out information and making sure that we have this in the documentation. Another great feature about the issues is that if, let's say someone posts that same concept and then other people go, yeah, I don't understand this either, and then someone else goes, yeah, we need some documentation, that raises a flag for anyone on the docs team to say, okay, we need to make sure that we get this in there. So even saying I don't know is very helpful. But additionally, if you're in the docs and you don't see anything, nothing stands out to you that you want to change, looking in the issues can give you ideas for PRs, and you can submit a PR for one that doesn't have one yet. And then you want to see the contributing doc, which is linked at the bottom of Angular.io, and that has in it a link to the contributor license agreement. Very easy, you just click through. Small PRs are easier for you to maintain, easier for others to review. And here's some ideas: typos, missing commas, also extraneous commas, just little things like that. Things like code formatting. So maybe in the prose we have a method that should be set apart in code font, but it's not. So since all of these docs are actually written in Markdown, you can just go in there and just do a little a backtick on either side, and that'll set it to be the right format. Something a little bit larger but still feasible in that it can be just the size of a paragraph would be clarification. So sometimes we might come across a phrase or something that maybe you know something very specific about this concept, and you could elucidate the rest of us. And in addition, we're specifically interested in making sure that the documentation is accessible, especially to non-native speakers. So if you see something that, even though it's absolutely correct and the grammar is fine, but you think, oh, this is tricky, like let's say you are a non-native speaker of English, and you see something that you think might be a pitfall for someone, just raise your hand. I'm very happy to brainstorm with anyone about how we can fix certain things. Okay, so where are the docs? This is a question that I've seen recently in the issues. People very willing to submit PRs, they just don't know exactly where to go. And so the guide and the tutorial and the example apps are all inside of content. And the guide and tutorial are in Markdown. The example apps are actually true Angular apps. So if you've built an Angular app, that should look familiar to you. And then the API docs are just a little bit different because they have in them a link. When you're actually in the API docs, you go to that link, it'll take you over to GitHub where you can see the file. And then if you scroll up, you'll see the actual path to it. And here I have that same one open in VSC, and this is still in Markdown, but it's inside the comments. So all of the writing about the topic, you just have to do in comments. Okay, so I'd also like to cover just the basics of submitting a PR because this is another question that we've gotten, and relative questions that are also relevant about submitting in just the process. So the first thing that you do is you fork Angular on GitHub. You go to GitHub Angular, and then you're going to clone your fork. And don't do the download zip button because that will make you end up like this. See, I told you could do that in Git. Instead, you want that link there so that you end up like this little guy. The difference is that you get all the Git information with that one. Okay, then all these blue commands are in the terminal. So you would clone it using that link that you just copied. Then you would check out a brand new branch and make your changes. I've named my branch here my docs fix. A lot of people will put their name in the beginning. I do mine usually Wong dash whatever I'm working on. And then you can do your edits. And then you add everything and you commit it. And this is, the commit message is actually really interesting because we have a special way that we like to do them. You could do it like this, docs, if you were doing docs, colon, or if you need to specify the scope, such as maybe you're working on something relevant to forms, you would say doc, parentheses, forms, and then you would say what you were what you worked on. So in this example, I found some typos in contributing and I'd like to fix them. So I say fix, and we say fix as opposed to fixes. The difference is that fix is the command form, the imperative, and fixes is the present indicative. So it's just a little different. So you do instead of does, right? Okay, and if you need examples of commit messages, just take a look at in the repo. You can look at all of the commits to get some ideas. If you're still not sure, always feel free to tag me, and I'm happy to come take a look and give you ideas. And there's another really cool thing you can do with the docs, and that's run them locally. And I've created a gist to show you just how to do that. And we just use Yarn to run them. Super simple and very handy, because as you update it, you see it update automatically. And then you push up to GitHub. And this would be your first command. After you've done this, after you've gotten your branch up onto GitHub, you don't have to do this anymore. You can just do git push. Okay, and so when you go in to submit your PR, you just want to make sure that you fill out the checklist that auto-populates there. It's pretty short, but it helps people like me going in get oriented as to your thought process. Let's see. Okay, after you've submitted your PR, a couple of things will happen. First, different people will come in and put different labels. That just helps us organize how we deal with them. And then you'll get a couple of different kinds of comments. You'll get technical if you're, let's say you've changed something in one of the example apps, or you've changed the way something is explained that's technical in nature, and somebody will come in and give you some ideas. Maybe if we need some sort of nuanced, that we make sure a certain nuance is in there. Otherwise, the comments would be like style related. So for example, we have to make sure that we keep everything to a certain standard. So we always put periods at the end of our list items, or we don't put spaces around the em dashes and so on. And I like to go through mine and always respond individually to every single one, just to make sure that the person knows that I've incorporated or considered what they're recommending. And also sometimes just to discuss it. So then you make your changes, you squash if you have a bunch of commits, and then you push back up. And at the bottom of your PR, and you can see this on any PR out there, there are a bunch of tests. And the first one there says missing required label. I'm not sure if you can see how tiny that is, but you don't have to worry about that one. Someone else will take care of that for you. But the Travis one is one you'll need to pay attention to. So if it has a red X like this, then you go into the details and you can look at the output and see where the error is coming from. Sometimes the error is very obvious, and it's something that, it might be from the file that you were working in. Other times it might be actually something on master, and so if it seems totally unrelated, give it a little bit of time, give it a few minutes, and then rebase and see if you can pass that test again. If you ever are at a point where you're doing something, you're not sure how to get that test working, again, just tag me on there. I'm very happy to come and help you sort that out. And then, of course, you would always rebase and push back up. So if you have big ideas or little ideas that could become really big ideas, just file an issue first. That way we can start the conversation, and also if somebody's working on that already, then we can engage and also see what your ideas are about that concept and try to incorporate your perspective as well. Okay, I wanted to come back to this concept of community because as I thought about it, I really realized that this was a huge motivating factor for me. And I like to think specifically of certain personas when I work. For example, the parent who has decided to learn how to program so that they can give their kids a better life. And I really identify with this because that was me. I had my baby in my left arm with the bottle, and then I was reading about code on my phone. And I did this every night for like 2 years. I really have a lot of compassion for people whose lives are just happening around them, and they're still trying to learn how to code. So if we have solid documentation, that'll help us have a faster learning curve. And that will give us more highly skilled devs, which will lead to more great apps. And those great apps can help get information to people in underserved environments, such as sub-Saharan Africa. For example, here in Namibia, they're using a battery on the bottom left, you can see, and with a solar panel to charge their cell phones. The infrastructure throughout sub-Saharan Africa there are a lot of challenges for getting internet access. So mostly people have to use cell phones, and the connectivity is not great, and the coverage is really spotty. So when I think about developing really great apps that are as sleek as possible, I think about situations like this. And what people need in this area is access to information and resources. And what little bit that we can do by making great apps can help that situation. So we don't code for ourselves. We code for others. Specifically, only 0.24% of the world's population codes for the other 99.76%. That's incredible, and we're part of that. And that 99% is our community too. So you may have heard people on the core team say, you can sit with us. And I tested it, and it's totally true, no matter how many times I got caught in that hammock. So if you have a little inner ducky or maybe an inner goose inside wanting to come out, come over to the docks and meet your future friends. Thank you.